Hey y'all, this is part two of the teacher request for making an arcade runner. All right, so we've got the game functional, just as a quick reminder. We have our shield that lasts, and we have the ability to fire. We have 5 lives and a minute timer. Okay, but now we are going to make sure we add the enemy, some ways to update the game, and then a way to get the score. All right. First, let's ensure that our game has some form of consequences to it. All right, so to do this, we're going to make sure in info that on life zero, we'll do a game over and lose. So go to game over. Oops, have to scroll down. All right, so now we have some consequences for if our player gets down to zero. All right, let's make sure we add some enemies in. And we're also going to make sure we add some sprites in to raise the score. Okay, so we're going to go into game and on game update every 500 milliseconds. All right, that is going to be a low amount of time. So remember, it's milliseconds, so we have to do this by thousands. So let's make it up to 2 seconds, which is an option right here, and that's why it'll say 2000 after you pick it. All right, so we're going to create a new sprite, and as we go down, apologies, it's back up here for set my sprite 2. So we're going to make sure we change this first and foremost to kind of enemy. All right, and then we're going to want to give it some kind of image. Let's do something similar to what y'all saw in the other example game. So we'll just choose this ghost. Done. Okay. So now we have every 2 seconds an enemy is going to be created, but we're going to have to make sure that that enemy is set to something. So as we go in, we're going to go to sprites and we're going to make sure it's set at a random location. So set my sprite X to 0. We're going to keep that, but make sure we change it to my sprite 2. Okay. We're going to keep the X, but right now it's at 0. But we want this to be something that happens randomly and we don't know where. So as a reminder, the X-axis is going to follow where my mouse is moving right here, similar to these two parallel lines. So we want it to pick a random area. The boxes in MakeCode Arcade typically work best between 5 and 155 on the map. To do this, we go into Math, and then we do pick random. And right here over this 0, we're going to go right into here. And we're going to set it between 5 and 155. Okay. Now, we do also want to make sure that our ghost always appears exactly from the top of the screen. So in this case, we're going to go back in and do it again, but we're going to do set my sprite X to 0. We're going to make sure we change that again to my sprite 2 and change this to Y. Okay, so a quick thing, there's not going to be a lot of velocity or speed to it, but we should see enemies start appearing. Let's just see what it looks like right now. Okay, like I said, we can see them appearing up here, up top randomly, but they're not moving towards us, they're not anything, and right now our fireball spell doesn't do anything to them. No worries, we are going to change just that, but we know that it's working and the enemy is populating. All right. Remember earlier, we should have you should have animation still up. We're going to select that and the animate my sprite. We'll bring it right back down here. All right, again, change it to my sprite 2. And let's go ahead and pick into that. All right, so look, that's the ghost with the claw, and given that the angle that they're going to come in, that's perfect. We'll call it Ghost Claw. Perfect. Okay, we're going to want it to be repeating. No need to really change the interval right now. So, there's a lot of ways to do this, but one of the more fun ways is to make sure that the enemy is actively seeking you out, and make code gives us the ability to do that. So, under sprites, we're going to go to set. It's my enemy to follow my sprite. Now, we have not called it my enemy, so we're going to make sure it is my sprite 2. There we go. Don't worry about those initial error messages sometimes. It's just going to happen that. So my sprite, and then we're going to hit that plus button with speed. I recommend doing something like 50 right now. All right, so let's see what this looks like right now. Okay, now all these ghost characters are, but there's no way for me to die. There's also no way for y'all to do it, but we're just getting chased by ghosts that are swinging at us crazily. Okay, that is perfect. So we have an enemy now. We have an enemy that's going to follow us. Before we do any kind of collider effects, though, let's give a kind of sprite that will give us a score. So go back into game and on game update. Let's change that to every 1 second. Now we're going to create another one. So you can always rename some of these naming conventions. We're going to leave it at my sprite 3 for right now for simplicity. First of all, let's go change it from player to kind of food. It's just a default option, but it does work really well for the score. All right, I clicked in and let's go in to the gallery. Well, we already called it food. Why not we pick a tasty burger here? Okay. And we're going to make sure that we set my sprite 3 to something similar here. All right. So we are going to set, in this case, let's try experimenting with something else that we can do that's also random. So we're going to set it to the X and Y. And then we're going to do that math random variable. And again, we'll do that 5 and 155. So you might be asking yourself in the video, is there any real difference between them? The proper answer is no, not really. I liked to do this version because we're going to have this enemy follow our player, and this is how we're going to gain score here. So I kind of just have this set down. So really, it will appear just about anywhere. Um, it's gonna come in a top-down fashion once we set the correct velocity. I would say that you can just experiment with both. I haven't seen any real issues. I usually just do this as a form to show that there's multiple ways of tackling anything. All right. Last thing we have to do here, though, for our food is we have to give it a velocity. So we are going set the velocity, my sprite 3. We don't need it moving on the x-axis at all, but we do need it moving somewhat fast here. So let's change to like 75. All right, so just remember, yeah, like because the all the food is going to do if we don't set a velocity for it is to stay up top. Whoa, that is a big burger, but all good. Okay, we have burgers galore. We have ghosts coming in. How are we going to get around this? All right, now it is time to set those colliders up that we had talked about. All righty. So we're going to go into sprites. And then as we go down here, all right, on sprite, kind of player overlaps with other sprite, kind of, let's do the enemy. All right, so we need to make sure that other the enemy should be destroyed upon colliding with you. So let's go make sure that is added in. And let's see. So back to sprites, we're going to go down into destroy. So don't do the destroy my sprite too, just do the other sprite. So we're going to copy that and we're going to paste it and we're going to, and then we can just do a quick spray effect for that. So that's fine. For right now, it's not going to do much, but yep, it's just going to disintegrate. So we see that the enemies as they go, but we don't destroy all of them. All right, we're going to want to add some more stuff in here to make sure that happens. But we now have a way to get rid of our enemies. Let's do the same thing for the food. Yeah, apologies for there. Now we just changed the kind right here for food. We're just going to go ahead and destroy that sprite. I mean, we don't need to do an effect for this one, but we can if we want to. All right, let's make sure that works again before we do any other steps. All right, great. We still need to go ahead and complete all the other ones, but first, let's add some consequences and penalties to this. So, after we have destroyed the enemy sprite, we should change the life. Let's go into info, and we are going to change life by -1 every time we get a hit for that. So if our player hits the enemy, we're going to lose some health. And then if we hit the burger, we're going to change score by 1. Great. Now, let's just go ahead and play test that real quick. All right, I'm avoiding it. Bam, I took 1. I took a hit. We can see the scores going up. I am rapidly losing health. And since my life was over, I hit the game over and lose for the score. Okay, great. We've got that going on. Now let's make sure that our projectiles actually do something. So again, we're going to do that collider a third time on sprite kind of, let's change it to projectile with other kind of enemy. All right. Then we are going to change, we're going to destroy the sprite. And then we are going to, instead of spray, let's do, I don't know, fire. Cool. Okay. Now we're going to test this real quick to make sure it works with both the A and B button. All right, let's try it with B. Cool. Now I'm holding B down, which is kind of cheap, but we could see that until I release it, I have this shield. All right. So we have a way for me to score. We have a way to, oops, I didn't hit the B button there. All right. But I think the last thing we should do to clear this up before we end this video is that we should make it so that if you shoot a projectile at the food, it destroys that. That way, the players have to have a little bit of strategy here. So let's just do one last one of these that we've already done because repetition is key to mastery. All right, so on that projectile with food. And we'll just copy this over. All right, that should be the last thing. That was pretty quick. Let's see what happens. Yep. All right, I'm holding my shield. I'm not getting any score while it's up. Oh, see, much harder now. And I can't, if I hit the burger, I don't get this much score. So that'll affect my high score for sure. Perfect. All right. So that concludes this video. You have created a fully functional scroller. Look around, change whatever you need to from it, make whatever edits, and then you can guys are ready to head right into module two. All right, thanks for staying with me, everyone. Happy gaming. Bye.